Well, greetings, pipe pals. Salutations to you. So, how are y'all doing? Holy Smoking Pipe Padre here with a pipe and a coffee and a MAGA hat and some attitude. Yep, attitude tonight. Okay. Yeah, I'm smoking, for those of you who are interested, smoking one of my old-timey calabash pipes here. Meerschaum calabash pipe. Had this thing for about 40 years probably. And in it I'm smoking some old Ironsides. Old Ironsides. And old Ironsides is is the nickname for the USS Constitution warship, which is, by the way, the oldest commissioned ship in the United States Navy. In fact, I think it just went through a refit about a year or two ago. They took her out to sea for a little bit and brought her back to port in Boston there, Boston Navy Yard. And I believe that's where the old Ironsides is stationed. And that's her port. So anyway, so yeah, I'm here tonight smoking old Ironsides, drinking coffee. It's the evening's actually kind of young. It's maybe 8:30-ish. So today is August the 21st, and it was the great eclipse. And depending upon where you are, where you were, maybe I'll roll a little bit of B-roll there. My my eclipse moment. What I did was I tried to just catch the first part. Not the first part, but the part where it goes from, pretty much partially obscured to fully obscured, wherever you were at. Now, we were up here, not quite as north as I would have liked to, but you only got 83% eclipse, opacity, whatever. So it wasn't, to be honest with you, of course, my video, my time lapse, and my little video, really wasn't that dramatic because it didn't really show the beginning and the end, So, but even though I think I could have done that possibly with my iPad or my iPhone, because it didn't really go 100% or whatever. You still got a bit of a large corona behind it, and it just didn't really seem to have the dramatic impact I thought it was going to be. And got to be honest with you, I was a little bit let down. It was a little bit of a letdown, I have to say, for me. I mean, it was interesting. I'm glad I took time to kind of raise my eyes to the heavens, at least, and kind of get them off of all the problems that we face here on Earth. And we are going to talk about some of those problems, absolutely. Last couple of videos, I don't think I've really been delving into the more controversial topics because, after a while, it all becomes more the same. Just a different day, And unfortunately, with the way the media is right now, being completely non-objective and very biased, it just gets old after a while. Until the next big story that eclipses, pun intended, the last story. So I'm just here tonight to kind of, offer my 2 cents, kind of say where I really kind of think stand in a lot of this stuff. And I'm intentionally wearing my MAGA hat only because it's probably very unpopular right now. It's probably considered as bad as maybe flying a Confederate flag. And for some people, it's probably synonymous with flying a swastika or something like that, because people who have allowed themselves to get drunk on their self-righteous rage can see or hear nothing else. So I want to talk about Charlottesville. I'm going to talk about it. Now, I was not there, like y'all. I can say y'all. I got my information from basically the media. There were some interesting videos I saw of people who went there not in order to stand with the Nazis or the white supremacists, but, they really wanted to listen. They never got a chance to listen to the speakers. And mostly the thing that I was thinking, if I had lived there in Charlottesville, Virginia, would I have gone to that, at the time, again, it was really kind of a Charlie Foxtrot. That's all I'll say about that. It's where the permits were granted. Was it Lee Park or Emancipation Park? They're like different parks. And it seemed like the place where they were going to speak on Saturday, they did somehow the mayor's office did a switcheroo thing at the last minute and kind of threw the whether you want to call them Nazis, alt-right, white supremacists, or whatever, people who were just wanting to protest the taking down of the General Lee statue. That's where things kind of started to really fall apart, because had they, I think, allowed the speakers, protesters, whatever you want to call them, to just go and speak. Now, you have to understand something. I'm going to talk about a very unique individual towards the end of my video tonight that will probably surprise a lot of you, because this person has made a dramatic stand for the First Amendment under the most, I would say, extreme and egregious situations. You will be amazed at this human being. In many ways, he's kind of a modern-day Atticus Finch. I would say that. So if you've ever either read the book, To Kill a Mockingbird, or you have seen the movie, or both, and you admire and think Atticus Finch is a great human being, even though he is from a fictional world of Harper Lee, this real-life person, I'm going to tell you, I think is as admirable as Atticus Finch. But I digress. I will get to that at the end, okay? So kind of marked out my territory, from the beginning to the end. So let's get into the weeds of it, shall we? Let's get into the middle of it, okay? So tragically, there was a very hateful, rageful demonstration. And where we come down right now, a week, about 10 days after the event, is that how people interpret this event. So, now, I'm wearing glasses because I wanted to say I'm giving a little homage to one of my favorite YouTubers, and I have a lot of them out there. But this guy, and you can check him out, his name is Doctor of Common Sense, E.T. Williams. That's all I'm going to say. You want to go and check out E.T. Williams, because I think he's awesome, And he has asked some of his followers to ask one question to the liberal media. What about Chicago, damn it? Okay, so E.T., I covered you back there. I did what you asked. What about Chicago, damn it? Okay, so putting that out there. So anyway, so I'm wearing my glasses, kind of an homage to him. Not that I'm hiding my identity, not nothing like that. Just kind of a little. If you go see E.T. Williams, you'll know who I'm talking about. But anyway, kind of got my homage out of the way. My respect for him, paying my respects to him, and there we go. So, good old Holy Smoking Pipe Padre right here with you. Okay, so Charlottesville. Yeah, a lot of people, a lot of upset, angry, and I would say even hurt people. And sadly, there are some people who are, I think there may be some people who are legitimately fearful, but I don't know if that's truly legitimate, okay? But if you're one of those, I don't discredit your feelings. You're entitled to your feelings and your beliefs. And I'll be the first one to support you, even if you disagree with me. And probably a lot of you do. Okay, so So Charlottesville, again, tragedy. The little gal, Heather Heyer, I guess her name was, lost her life. My question is, because it was a dark gray Dodge Charger that did this infamous deed, are all black, gray Dodge Chargers now going to be synonymous or equated with racism? That's my question. I have to say that, it may go down. It may go down that the dark gray Dodge Charger now will become an icon of infamy, and Dodge will probably have a real drop in sales, especially on that model of car. I'm just saying. I mean, I don't wish them any ill will, the Dodge Motor Company, but I would not be surprised that we find out that in a few months to come that the Dodge Charger is now considered a symbol of hatred and bigotry and racism and white supremacy and neo-Nazis and skinheads, and it's the whole bit, okay? So there you go. But so this young gal lost her life, and so there's a lot of really strong feelings on both the left and the right. Now, where I come down on is that the president, whether you like him or not, whether you hate him or not, whatever, he said many times that white supremacy, neo-Nazis, Ku Klux Klan, all those groups are bad. They're totally bad. He has not endorsed them. He's not embraced them. But the media keeps saying, well, he won't disavow them. Hey, how many times? And not just recently, but even as of a couple of decades ago, when he was just kind of starting to maybe entertain some fleeting thoughts of, maybe being the president might be something I might be interested in. But anyway, so I personally, and I still hold my theory that the reason why the media hates Donald Trump is because they hate Donald Trump, and that's all it is. You see, in our country today, we're so angry, and this is the interesting thing, is that the world is filled with an awful lot of discontented, angry people, and they're filled with rage. And they need a scapegoat, if you will, to, project their hate upon. See, I hate to say it, no pun intended, but we need legitimate emblems, or we need a legitimate, supposedly, quote unquote, legitimate, whether they be institutions or people, we need some kind of a projection so that we can place our hate on that. And it's okay. It's okay to hate Nazis. No one's going to challenge you on that. It's okay to even hate Catholic priests, because they're all pedophiles, don't you know? It's okay to hate cops because they're just a bunch of cold-blooded, murderers in blue, okay? So pick your group that society has kind of said, yeah, it's okay to hate those type of folks. No one's going to hold it against you. But my friends, let me ask you a question. You're setting up another group for hatred, just like, whether you want to hear this or not, just like the Nazis did with the Jews. That's all you've done. You've just substituted a different group that you see it's legitimate hate. Now today, of course, we'll say, well, you can't say hating Jews is okay. No one would say that. Well, that's what they did in Germany. They believed that the Jews were basically to blame for the loss of World War I. They believed that the Jews were selling out their economy, and that's why they had the rampant poverty and inflation. And so basically they found a group that they could foist all their hate upon, and so that's how the Jews became victims. Now, am I supporting neo-Nazis or KKK or white supremacy? Not at all. I'm going to explain that in just a moment. I am not, never have been, and never will be a racist. Although some people might want to label me that because I don't want to fully endorse the media interpretation, which is very limited and basically says you have to hate these people. Well, first of all, I believe for a Christian, hate is never morally justified. You cannot morally justified hate. Jesus hated no one. Now, you might say, what about the Pharisees? What about the Pharisees? He was disappointed in the Pharisees, and he wasn't afraid to make his beliefs known and to expose their hypocrisy and challenge them. He didn't hate Pharisees, though. He treated them with respect, always, although he did challenge them many, many times. Some of the Pharisees that he actually considered probably friends, like Nicodemus, or maybe Joseph of Arimathea. We told Joseph of Arimathea was a friend of Jesus. So they were Pharisees. So the bottom line is that Jesus would never, ever condone us to hate anybody or any group. I would even dare say that Jesus probably would maybe go to, if he was, we put it in modern times, or let's say move the Jesus stories to the 1940s, it could very well be that Jesus is walking down a street in Germany and he sees a Nazi officer and he says, "Hey, Colonel so-and-so, I'm going to have dinner at your house tonight." How can you say that? Because that's the way Jesus was. He wasn't afraid of any identity group. In fact, that was his mission, is to try to reach out to all these disparate groups, whether they be righteous Jews or the Pharisees, the Sadducees, the scribes, the zealots, tax collectors, who were the outscum, outscum of his time. He reached out to everybody. Yes, the publicans and the sinners, we all know that. So Jesus never endorsed and never tells us to hate anyone. So I think in many ways what we've done is because we want to hate, because we're angry, we want to hate somebody. We want somebody to pay. And that's the problem. We want somebody to pay for our personal misery as we magnify it through politics. Well, look at all this injustice. Somebody's got to pay. Well, it's got to be these Nazis. Which is interesting because there is no real political Nazi party. There may be people that call themselves Nazis. Probably a lot of them have no idea what a Nazi is, although, actually a lot of them don't. But the problem is that, there is no Nazi party in America. So first of all, you don't have to worry about, the Nazis coming to power and Adolf Hitler, although some of you want to make Trump into Hitler, which is absolutely asinine. Go study your history. That's not even close. Not even close. So a lot of people are angry at President Trump because he not only said that the KKK and the white supremacists, the Nazis, are a vile, evil group, blah, 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 but he also said there were also people on the left as well, i.e. Antifa, i.e. By any means possible. And there's another group, I guess it's called the Social Workers Party or something like that. Again, a very strong leftist communist group. And there's probably a lot of other little fringe groups that are clearly communists. They're communists out there. So the president's right. And when he said there were good people on both sides, there were bad people on both sides, I think that he was absolutely being objective. But the problem is that doesn't fit with the narrative because it doesn't allow people to get away with their hate. It challenges the fact that I get to hate on somebody legitimately. I get a free pass to hate on this group, which is absolutely asinine. And it causes more problem. When you go looking for a fight the way Antifa and By Any Means Necessary, and again, these other radical leftist groups, they were coming looking for a fight. Somebody brought up, yeah, but they didn't bring guns. Well, okay, now I've seen some of these protest groups. Some of the guys, they're bringing these, there's two issues. There's actually three issues here. Some of them are bringing these replica guns that look just like the real thing. Okay? That's all I'm going to say. But even if they were bringing open carry firearms, the Second Amendment gives them the right to do that. And back when I was growing up, I remember the Black Panthers in California, I think they were California, or other parts of the country, maybe there was different parts of the country as well as California, they brought rifles and shotguns to their rallies, their protests, scared people. And yet, I support their right to open carry. A person says, well, yeah, but if you know anything, they were arrested for that. Actually, probably weren't, because in California, because California is not open carry. Well, that's only been the last 4 or 5 years that California did away with open carry. So back in the 1960s, open carry was legal. And so they were well within their rights under the Second Amendment. In fact, I do hope someday that policy in California will be overturned by the Supreme Court, because they are infringing upon the Second Amendment. So I agree, if people, law-abiding citizens that want to carry a gun in open public, they have that right, and I support that right, whether you're black or yellow or green or with polka dots or whatever, as long as you're a law-abiding citizen and you're exercising your Second Amendment rights, just like your First Amendment rights, I don't have a problem with that. And you shouldn't either. So anyway, when President Trump said that there were good people on both sides, bad people on both sides, okay, let me tell you, if I had been there close enough where I could have driven there within an hour or so, I probably would have gone to hear the speakers. Now, I believe that taking down the statues, which seems to be the pivotal point in all this, or the flashpoint, is that some people want to take down now all the Confederate statues. They want to erase history. Foolish, foolish, foolish. You erase your history, you're going to repeat it. There's no doubt about it. But I would have gone just to say, you know what? If people want to put this on a ballot, if people want to debate this, if they want to have discussions about it, and then after a period of discussion and then voting, and then it says, people said that this ordinance, they want to pass this proposition, removing of statues. Okay, all right. But for vigilantes and lawless people to go out there on their own, again, it's the mentality of a mob to take down these statues. They have no legal right to do that. So I would have been protesting to say, hey, keep the statue up. Let's talk about it. But you don't have a right just because you don't like it or defend your feelings. Those statues, probably a lot of them have been there over 100 years. If it was such a problem, how come President Obama didn't address this in his 8 years in office? How come Al Sharpton or any of these other quote-unquote black leaders, how come it's now a problem now all of a sudden? How come? Al Sharpton's been in the civil rights movement for as long as I can remember. Not once has he ever talked about those Civil War statues. Just saying. Time for a relight. So right now, some of you all who know my politics, know my philosophy, and you're probably all up in arms, Yeah, I support your Second Amendment rights too. Okay, so you want to be up in arms, good for you. Support the Second Amendment. Earlier in the day, I just had a bad coughing jag, and I'm a little bit nervous because I'm thinking, I was aiming at my office of all places, and there's no smoking or anything in there, and I haven't had a pipe in over a week now, so I was a little bit kind of apprehensive making this video because I'm thinking, man, if I got something going on here, I'm going to really exacerbate it by smoking a pipe, that's for sure. Anyway, I digress. So I would have been there, and I just would have liked to have heard the people, supporting, basically a constitutional or a law saying, okay, we'll vote on this. And then if the end of the vote, people said, yeah, we need to get rid of those statues, fine. Okay, great. So some of you, again, probably looking at this video and say, wow, that guy is really a racist. Okay. Let me give you a little bit of a background. I grew up as a child. I was probably 10, 11, 12. I was at that age where you can kind of realize, hey, things aren't really all that good. Whether it's in your home, whether it's in your school, whether it's in your city, whether it's in your country. A lot of pretty ugly things happen. The assassination of President Kennedy, Bobby Kennedy, Martin Luther King. These were like horrific things. And for a child growing up, you're like, wow. But one of the things that a lot of people, my generation, now I don't know about other people in my generation, but I came from a very poor background, poor little little white boy, okay? But I'll tell you, I was one of those first generation kids that were raised, that were supposed to be raised colorblind. Supposed to be colorblind. You know, you really don't focus on color. You know, Martin Luther King said he had that dream of all little black boys and little white girls and little black girls and little black boys, and they're all holding hands and singing. Well, I don't know if they're singing "Kumbaya," but they're being together. You know, didn't matter. Again, not the quality, not the color of your skin, but the quality of your content, right? You know, so I actually embraced that. I believed that. You know, I thought racism, still do, is repugnant. I mean, it doesn't make sense. You can dislike people for a whole lot of real reasons, and skin color has nothing to do with it. And again, you can even dislike people, or maybe not dislike them, you can just disagree with them and say, hey, you know, I don't agree. You know, I don't think it's a big secret. Based on, you know, religious beliefs and Catholic teaching, you know, I don't agree with same-sex marriage. I don't. However, if you are in a same-sex marriage relationship, you know what? That's your business. I don't hold it against you. I'm not going to come and bang on your door and tell you, you can't live that way. This is America, okay? If that's what you want to do, that's fine. But I'm telling you that if you come to my church and you say, hey, we want to get married, I can't do that for you. My church says we don't recognize same-sex marriage. It's not that we hate gays or we don't accept gays or whatever, but we don't have a category to where we can say that's marriage for us. Our marriage for us is a one man, one woman. It's been that way, and that's what we believe. And if you find that upsetting or offensive, I'm sorry, but no, we're not trying to force our views on you. This is what we believe. And if you want to think that's bigoted or racist or whatever, and you know what? You have a right to believe that, you know. And if you still, you know, I think I can be friends with anybody, regardless, whether you have a different philosophical viewpoint, if you're not racist, if you're an atheist. Hey, this gets a little, actually this, again, my final point tonight, I think I will actually prove it. So even if a person was, I quote unquote, racist, I don't think I've ever met a racist. I've met a lot of people who use racial epithets. I would be lying to say that I don't know people who've used racial epithets. Of course I have. I've heard it all the time. Now, I'm going to say something that might offend some people, but to some extent it is true. You know, here's the thing. I was in the Marine Corps, and the Marine Corps taught me again that it's kind of a colorblind thing. I had a lot of senior NCOs that were awesome, you know, gunnery sergeants, first sergeants, you know, master gunnery sergeants and sergeant majors, and even the Army in the same thing. And I'll tell you what, some awesome gentlemen, awesome people. And I didn't think a second that, oh, that's a black guy. No, that's my first sergeant. That's my sergeant major. That's my staff sergeant. You know, and that's the way it is. And again, grew up to be colorblind. And I wish that had caught on instead of all this segregation and all this, you know, identity politics, which kind of seemed to grow out of the 60s as well. But being colorblind, you know, and there was an old saying, I remember one senior Marine said, you know, all we have are Marines, and all Marines are green, just some come with black vinyl tops. Thought that was cool. I loved it. Some people think that's racist. Some people think that's horrible to say that. But it was like, yeah, so what? The guy's black. It doesn't matter. He's a Marine. It doesn't matter. You know, may not like him because he's a jerk. May not like him because he's a lying, thieving son of a gun. He'll rob you blind when you're not looking. But I don't dislike him because of his skin color. May not like his attitude, but it has nothing to do with skin color. So again, I was brought up to be colorblind. I've had many employers or bosses that were black guys, even black gals. Don't remember having a problem with that. Now, I might have had a problem with some people where I felt that they might be kind of slightly anti-Catholic. Can we talk about that? I mean, I've run into Catholic bigotry. Not a lot. I'm not going to go out and say, oh, the whole world's against Catholics and Catholic, no, I'm not going to say that. Are there a few people that are? Yeah. Do they let it color their attitude? I mean, if you get to know me as a person and I get to know you as a person, that's what matters. Now, again, you may have a different creed in life. You may have some practices that I would have to say, according to what I believe, that's something I couldn't really embrace or support. But here in America, Catholics don't rule the world, okay? They don't rule the country, nor do we want to. So, if you want to have an adult bookstore that sells liquor and whatever, you're free to do that. Am I going to probably support you? Probably not. Am I going to tell you that I think you're wrong? If you came to me in confession and said, hey, I run an adult bookstore or a liquor store, and I might say, well, maybe you need to think about changing your occupation, okay? Might have to encourage you to do that. But I'm not going to hate you, As long as you're respectful and you're trying to be, you're trying to be a member of society. You're not trying to destroy society, I would say. Okay? That's a fine line. I know some people are going to say, oh, well, what about this person? What about that person? And you're going to support them and not them. No, I'm not saying. I'm just saying that people have differences of opinions, philosophies, religious beliefs, non-religious beliefs, political persuasions. So again, in America, though, the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, gives all of us a special freedom to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, okay? Again, yeah, so as long as you're not doing something totally illegal and or trying to infringe upon my rights, then, I might find some of the things that you do maybe morally questionable or objectionable, but at the same time, the Constitution, the Bill of Rights gives you the freedom to do that, okay? So I don't got a problem with that. So again, I was raised to be colorblind. And for the most part, I've done that. Now, I am no paragon of virtue. I don't hold myself up as saying, look how righteous I am, and look how accepting I am. No, I mean, like I said, I'm just a person who wants to believe in pretty much live and let live for the most part. But again, I'm not going to say, well, I'm not going to compromise my beliefs, and especially when I think that people are being disingenuous and they're being hateful. Now, we talk about bigotry. That's one of the last things I'm going to talk about before I bring it to a close. I have one last thing I want to talk about. But what is bigotry? Bigotry is you just dislike somebody intensely because you dislike them, Again, I think I'm going to go back and I'm going to keep doing this because I think it's the best analogy. It's that divorce analogy, and I mean, everybody's had that experience where you have a couple, they separate, and both of them, and if it's really an ugly, now some divorces can be quote unquote civil, they can be respectful, and I'm not saying it's a painless separation, but at least they don't try to go into the mud. They don't try to destroy the other person's character totally. But I've met a lot of couples where they go for the jugular, and the guy is the worst guy. He's worse than Hitler, I swear to God. Or she's the worst, SULT in the whole wide world. She's the worst. She doesn't even know what the word mother means. I was going to say something else, but I won't. But the thing is that you vilify that person. You just heap all the hatred that you can on them, right? And most people, after a while, most rational people are going to kind of start backing off. They're not going to take your phone calls because they know that you want to rant about your ex for an hour or two. Maybe you've had a little bit too much wine and you're just feeling your oats, and man, you want to tell the world what a real SOB that person is. Your closest friends will probably put up with that for a little while, but eventually they're gonna Andrea, you don't want to hear about your ex. That's between you and them. Obviously you're angry, you're hurt, you're mad, And that's the way a lot of people are on the alt-left. The alt-left. I love that, because they've been saying alt-right for the longest time, and now we've got a new word in the lexicon, alt-left. Alt-left delete. That's what I like to say. But again, they're angry, and they want a legitimate group to hate. The problem is that now anybody that slightly resembles a white racist, a neo-Nazi, a KKK person. There was one guy who had a military high and tight, and they beat him up. I guess he was I don't know if he was actually active duty or reserve, but he had a military haircut because he was in the reserves or he was in the military. They thought he was a white nationalist. They thought he was a racist. So now we start, it's again, look at all the statues that are being torn down. Kind of it should remind you of something, 1939, called Kristallnacht, Yeah, that's right. That's when they went in and started destroying and defacing synagogues and all sorts of things. Why? Because it was okay to hate Jews back then. And now today it's okay to hate Nazis. And maybe tomorrow it'll be okay to hate Democrats. Just saying. It's already okay to hate Republicans and conservatives. But someday, maybe they'll come for you. Because people will be angry, and they're going to be looking for a group of people to take out their anger and hatred on. And you might be the next one. Just saying. So I'm going to close with this last thing here, which I think is amazing. And for all you who are, your blood's ready to boil now, and there's a couple of you out there who send me, spicy retorts and tell me how messed up I am and how can I be a Christian and all that. And it's like, well, okay, I'll listen to what you have to say. As long as you do it respectfully. I mean, I can always talk to you, or at least we can debate. But again, so most people are saying, but it's wrong to in any way condone or allow, Nazism and neo-fascists white supremacists and KKK to even give them a platform. You can't do that. Well, you're right. I can't do that. You can't do that. But the First Amendment does give them the right to speak. As long as they do that, freedom of assembly, peaceable freedom of assembly, freedom of speech, they can do that. As long as they're not advocating violence, as long as they're not trying to, practice violence in any way, shape, or form, as long as they want to stand up and spout their views, no matter how repugnant they are, they have a right to do that. And I defend that. And again, even like people like Louis Farrakhan. Believe it or not, when I was a prison chaplain, I had a young man, God bless him, and he'd want to come in and watch videos. And he was a Nation of Islam guy. And I didn't know much about it, Nation of Islam. But I got a schooling. I'll tell you what, I went to school. And so one day he was watching a video. He was all by himself in the main church. The rest of the yard was shut down, and he was able to come out and play or whatever. And he asked me permission. He was very polite. Said, I'd like to watch this video, chaplain. Can I do that? I said, absolutely, sure. Set it up. And I wasn't doing a whole lot, so I kind of was listening to this guy. And he was talking about, black men having responsibility for their families. He was talking about being a good role model for his son and his daughter. And so I kind of drew close, and the young man kind of got a little nervous. And I said, would you mind if I watch this? And he goes, you really want to watch this, chaplain? I said, yeah, I'd like to. Can I? And he goes, well, I guess. So he was nervous because I found out it was Louis Farrakhan. I never heard of him before. I never saw him before. Obviously, Louis Farrakhan is, I guess some people would say he's a racist because he doesn't like white people, or he thinks white people should be punished for all the bad things they did to black people. But when he was talking about raising a family and being a responsible gentleman, and being a good husband, a good father, and setting a good example, I'm like going, amen. Hey, I like this guy. And the young man kind of goes, yeah, he's quite a speaker, isn't he? I said, yeah, he's very articulate. And I really enjoyed listening to that. Really? And I said, yeah, I'd like to hear more of what he has to say. Now, some people say, oh, that's stupid. You never said that. You never did that. Well, I can tell you the honest truth. I did. And in fact, I kind of discovered, the story about Malcolm X through that. So again. But here's the thing. I support even Louis Farrakhan to say what he has to say. And believe it or not, like I said, I actually agreed with some of the things that he had to say. Not everything, obviously, but some of the things he said were right on the money. But I would defend his right to say what he believes, even if I felt that, wow, I'm sorry you feel that way about all white people. I would hope you would never see me that way, but I guess you do. But unfortunately, I'm sorry you see me that way, but I have no animosity or hatred towards you because of your skin, you know. Now, here's the thing I'm going to close with. There was an incident, this happened a couple decades ago. I remember it because it really made an impact on me. There was a gentleman, ironically, his last name was Black, Mr. Black. Some of you may have heard of this. Maybe you don't know where I'm going with this. He was an actual KKK person, and he was burning a cross, of all things, burning a cross. On his, well, first of all, he was burning a cross. Now, I found out that actually cross burning is protected speech on the First Amendment if, and here's where it gets interesting, if it does not invoke intimidation. But you can burn crosses as long as you're not trying to intimidate somebody. It is protected free speech. Well, the problem was that the guy was burning a cross on his own private land. He had a rally, and they burned a cross. Well, the police came out, arrested him, shut everything down, and they prosecuted him. And they were basically going to wrap this guy up in fish wrap and send him away to the cooler for a number of years because of, he did this hate thing. But one gentleman stepped forward to defend Mr. Black. Anybody know his name? I bet you some of you know his name. You probably know where I'm going with this. This gentleman's name is David P. Baugh, Esquire. David P. Baugh, Esquire. That's right, he's a lawyer. And Mr. Baugh, Counselor Baugh, decided to defend Mr. Black. And it was amazing because the first time he went around, he was convicted, but they appealed it. And it actually went all the way to the Supreme Court, and I think it was a 6-4 decision that basically said that this man did have the right under the First Amendment to burn a cross on his private property. Why? Because there was no intent to use it as intimidation. And Mr. Baugh won that case before the Supreme Court. And the irony is that this black man, this black gentleman, defended a KKK member for his First Amendment rights. My friends, David P. Baugh, Esquire, is the person I want to emulate. With that, I will wish you a good evening. Light up your world, light up a pipe, and light up the truth. Thanks for watching.